Hi, everybody. I'm Sherri Fisher, and I'm going to be your presenter tonight. I'd like to introduce my tech support, Carrie Sanderson, who's really awesome, volunteered to do this to help out. She's going to be keeping track of the chat later on when we have our Q&A. And we'll dive in. Tonight, we're going to talk about resilience. I call it managing life's stormy weather. And I have a little story about why I call it that, because when I was growing up, my grandmother used to call tears stormy weather. She would say to me, what's causing that stormy weather? And she was really very sweet and nice. She didn't ever say that in a mean way. We'll talk a little bit more about what can happen when kids are having stormy weather during difficult times, and how as adults we can help them to be more successful at managing difficult times. And there are also lots of little treats in here for parents as well, since this is really for you. Okay. Why is it not advancing? Oh, there we go. Okay, so we should know what resilience is before we get started. Little definitions. Different people have different ideas about that, because there are researchers who think that resilience is something everybody has, and that it's an ability to recover from a crisis or to adjust to a challenge. But other people think that it is a skill that you learn for challenging your negative thoughts. And then there are other people who think that it's a bunch of accumulated experiences that build optimism and self-belief so that you choose resilient behaviors. And I'm going to tell you that I think it's probably a combination of all of those things. It's not one or the other or even a third one. But we're going to be talking mostly tonight about what a real-time skill this can be. And mostly we're going to talk about accumulated experiences, because optimism and self-belief are really important in a time in our lives when nothing is really consistent, and every day is a little bit different, and nothing that is different is like it ever was before. So it's like a new kind of a different. The first skill that we're going to talk about is selective attention. So this is not the kind of selective attention when you have a child who doesn't listen to you, or you have a child who can pay incredible attention to video games but not to their homework. Instead, this is when you are choosing to selectively focus your attention on things that are going well, even when everything is not going well. So I'm not going to tell you that I think it's all great right now, but you have to imagine that when it's stormy, there are still good things that are going on, even when some things are not. So the part of the skill that I want you to be aware of has a couple different parts. Notice that there is a little journal and a pen, and if you have one of those, this is a great skill to put to use every day, and it's called What Went Well. So the first part of it is you pause and you notice what went well. And even in a day when something seems to have been like one disaster after the next, and today I actually had one of those days. Yesterday was great, but today I had one little disaster after the next. But I also am here with you, and everything is going well. So there are some things that happened that ended up being good, and that's what I'll focus on when I get to the end of my day. So what was good about that is that I get to share something with you that I'm excited about. Why did this happen? Well, because I put together the slideshow, and because Carrie is my friend and I asked her if she would come and help. And how can I get more of this? Well, I'm sure I'll have other opportunities to do things like this. But the way to get more like this and to get a good day like this is to put something into what makes it be good. And that's what you can learn about a little bit over time. You can do this with your kids every night. You can ask them what went well. You can figure out how much of what went well was random. You know, if there was a rainbow, that's random. How much of what went well was something that they actively planned for, or maybe it was just a momentary thing and they made a great decision and it moved off to something good. It could also be that they saw a friend and it's the energy that they have been putting into that friendship a little bit at a time, and that led to something really good. But you can write these questions down. This is going to be recorded so you can access it later. So what was good about this good thing? Why did it happen? And how can you get more of it? And it's a great thing to put it in a journal. These are the basic questions for a gratitude journal, because answering these questions helps you to feel grateful for the good things that did happen. The second skill is for real-time resilience, and I call it how to be a better puddle jumper. Once you can start to recognize that it's the emotional weather that's stormy, it's not that your child is bad or that your child is just doesn't get it or isn't paying attention to you, that they're being fueled by emotions, it makes it a lot easier to be able to help them. So you can notice that these emotions get more fired up the more you argue with your child, the more arguing there is and the more fighting there is, because you're actually pouring fuel onto that emotion. You can choose another way of thinking about things to calm the storm down, and you can talk with your child and get them to be aware of their own thinking. This is called emotion coaching. So at the beginning, I talked about what my grandmother said to me. She called it stormy weather. What's the stormy weather about? My mother would say to me, turn off the waterworks or I'll give you something to cry about. So that was not very helpful, right? So you can imagine that would make me feel scared. And if I was already scared, it would be worse. If I was feeling angry, I might be more angry at her. But my grandmother had a different way. And she said, you know, what's up the stormy weather all about? Come and tell me all about it. So when you open up and you're willing to listen to your child talk to you about that stormy weather, it helps them to be a better puddle jumper, and you too. So a thing to remember though is that all feelings are okay, but all actions are not okay. So if you are in the middle of having your breaking up an argument with your children, for example, or you have found out that your child didn't do their homework, you got email from a teacher, the way that you're feeling about that, those feelings are okay. You might not like them, but they're okay. And your child's feelings about being found out, those feelings are okay, but the actions are not okay. So finding out what happened is important, because then you can show some empathy. You can say, I'm sorry that you had difficulty getting your work done. I'm sorry that you felt embarrassed that your teacher wrote an email to me. And then you can open up the conversation and you can find out how you can problem solve. So maybe your child was feeling ashamed because they didn't know how to do the work and they didn't reach out to the teacher because they didn't know what to say. Maybe they didn't want to come to you because you were grouchy, because every time they interrupted you, you couldn't get your work done. So it's not just the behaviors and the feelings in the moment that are difficult. You also may have to dig in a little bit and find out what story is really going on. So there are 5 stories, and we have a bonus story also. And this is the only slide that has tons of text on it like this. One other one that I will read to you, but I want you to see all the things together. These are the stories, and these make huge emotion storms. So if a child's telling an unfairness story, for instance, I can't play with my friends, and they get really, really wound up, that is anger. And you can tell it's an unfairness story. And that way you can approach them and you can talk to them about how you understand that it feels unfair to them. And you can talk to them about it being angry. And maybe you can problem solve together about what they can do because they're missing their friends. When kids are afraid, they're afraid that they're going to catch the virus or you're going to catch the virus. Older kids are afraid that they're not going to get to play with their friends because everybody else is worried that they're going to spread the virus. Then we have kids telling a danger story. It's about anxiety, all the things you're never going to get to do that you worry about. There's also the forever story. These are the kids who have worked so hard to graduate from high school or college, and they say, I talk to them, every day, several hours a day. I work with kids like this, and they tell me they've worked so hard for nothing. And it's interesting that they have everything is all hinged on big things instead of looking at what they might have learned along the way being in school. So they're full of sadness because they have sort of all their puddles are very huge and they can't jump over any of them. And this is really very sad for them, but you can help them to see that they're feeling sad and that you feel sad for them, but you don't really feel sorry for them because you don't want them to feel like they're pitiful. When kids don't do things that they're supposed to do, and they tell a failure story, failures can be very tiny. They don't have to be big to make kids feel shame. For instance, say that your child missed a small piece of directions and homework that they were supposed to be doing, and they, as a result, they didn't get any of the points on an assignment. They may feel that they have completely failed. Instead of reaching out to a teacher and finding out what might get done with that, or saying, oh, I missed these directions. Instead, your child could feel that they failed and be feeling so ashamed that they don't even know how to get started. And then they might give up. They just might say, I can't keep up with all the changes that are happening at school. And just imagine for you, you might feel the same way. Every time the homework shows up, you have to figure out how to teach them. And what if you don't know how to do it and you're not a teacher? Some people have said, wow, I'm not a teacher, but I've learned so much. I think I'm doing a great job. And other people say, wow, I never wanted to have this job before. I don't want it now. But all the changes one way or the other are really hard. So it's easy for adults to feel ashamed that they're not good enough to do whatever needs to get done now too. Another thing that's happening is that we have the people who don't wear masks, and we have the people who want to have everything open. And we want to have the people who do wear masks and who don't want to have everything open. And we have people who are now telling what's called the filth story. And the emotion that goes with that is disgust. It's really destructive. And you want to make sure that you are open with your kids about tempering that, because you would not want to feel that way about other people. But the bonus emotion storm is about guilt. And you'll know that this is the one that you have going on when you want to fix things. And if you are looking at your child and thinking, oh, it's my fault that this, I can't get a good dinner together. It's my fault that I'm working all the time and I'm not able to devote the time that I need to devote to helping them with their schoolwork. Then you know that you have guilt. And if you're trying to fix things, that's another one that we need to just calm down. But knowing that these are what the stories are is really important. These stories are driving people's behavior. So people who are angry want to fight, people who are anxious want to escape, people who are sad give up, people who are ashamed want to hide and they lie, people who are feeling disgusted don't make any room for anybody else's ideas or feelings, and people who feel guilty try to fix everything, but not themselves. So a remedy for this is skill number 3, which is to practice self-compassion. So the way to think about this is that you want to be a wise and kind friend to yourself. Anybody can learn how to do this. We're going to have a short meditation that takes you through this. This is going to help us to do what this wise and kind friend would tell us. Maya Angelou said, forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know before you learned it. And all of us have learned a lot of new things that we didn't know before. And just remember that if you didn't know it before, you can't be expected to have known it. So here's our meditation. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is part of life. I desire and deserve compassion. May I give myself the compassion that I need. Go back to that second line. I desire and deserve compassion. May I give myself the compassion that I need. May I learn to accept myself as I am. May I forgive myself. May I be strong. May I be patient. There's a website listed here. You can go back and you can get this from the recording, but Selfcompassion, self-compassion.org has wonderful meditations that are all about self-compassion. May you forgive yourself. May you be strong. May you be patient. The fourth skill is to be a strength spotter and be compassionate towards other people. All of us have strengths that we overuse and underuse. And when we can be able to spot other people using a strength, whether they're using it in a way that's helpful or they're using it in a way that's maybe not so helpful, either way, it's a way that you can help to be compassionate toward other people. You can also use this to be more compassionate towards yourself. So you can do this by going to get a free test at this website, viacharacter.org. And a cool thing is that you can become a strengths-based parent this way. You can discover your 24 strengths, and kids can take their own tests starting at age 10. So between 10 and 17, they take a child's version of this test, the VIA Youth, and 18 and up, it's all the adult version of the test. You, for example, just to give you an idea about what these tests will reveal, they will reveal your 24 character strengths in order. My top strength is called Appreciation of Beauty and Excellence. So you'll notice I have lots of details and pretty things in my slide presentation, for example. Another one of my strengths is kindness. I always like to do things that will help other people get things that they need, and my work is based on that as a strength. There are 24 though, so just imagine how many other ones there are that you have. These are the things that are good about a person. They are not things that you're trying to change. It's not a test where you find out what you don't have, because you have all of it. It's pretty cool. So here's how you can use strength spotting. And here are going to be some examples. 4 of the 20 strengths are going to be here. You can call out other people's strengths by noticing the things that they're doing that are good. So I love the way you stuck with things even when it was hard for you. That's a way of calling out someone's perseverance. So instead of pointing out how long it took your child to do something, you can turn that into a strength spotting moment, that they stuck with it even when it was hard. I love the way you told the truth when others wanted to keep the secret. You may have kids who are honest to a fault, but if you help them understand that they have a strength of honesty, then you can also help them learn how to temper it. I love the way you noticed I was feeling sad and gave me a hug. That's your child showing kindness and also empathy probably, and just noticing, being, showing social intelligence perhaps. And you can use that moment to be able to talk to your child about their strengths. I love the way you used your imagination to figure out a solution. That means, perhaps they were using creativity. Maybe they were using other strengths as well. But being able to use your imagination to problem solve is something that's really valuable in life and in school. And especially now when we have all kinds of new things that we have to be facing every day, you can tap into your kids' strengths to help things be much more positive at home. So skill number 5 is to be the rubber in the boot of life. So a lot of us feel like we're getting booted around a lot in life right now. And you can be the rubber in the boot of not just your life, keeping your feet dry, so that if you have to go through the puddles of life, especially you might want to have those really tall boots on the left there. But you want to be able to do that not just for yourself, but for other people as well. So you can do this by connecting with friends and loved ones. You use this is your little tiny mantra that you say to yourself and maybe also to the person who you're speaking with. Tell me more. When someone comes to you with their problems and they're complaining and you engage them with empathy, then that person is going to be more likely to be able to talk themselves down, instead of having you get them to be really super engaged with how angry they are. Remember that earlier we said that you can be like my grandmother was, and she said to me, tell me about that stormy weather. What happened? You want to show that you are willing to hear. Now, another thing that can happen is somebody might tell you something good. And when someone tells you something good, a nice thing to do is to get them to really talk about it a lot, because that helps to build connection between you and somebody else. So that's a way that you can, first of all, you can be that, bring resilience to the person who is struggling, but you can also, you can solidify your connections to other people by getting them to talk more about how things work well in their lives. So you can kindle your curiosity, and curiosity is a character strength. You can also build resilience with meaning and purpose. So here, these pictures give you an idea of what that might be. You could have hobbies, you could have personal development, fitness. You might learn things that you would read about. The important thing, though, about meaning and purpose is that people who engage meaning and purpose in their lives have 4 wonderful things that make them more resilient. So they feel connected to other people, and they offer strengths to other people. the strengths that they have. We talked about earlier, these character strengths. Maybe they have kindness and generosity. Maybe they have curiosity. Maybe they have love, the capacity to love and be loved, many other things. And they think bigger than themselves. So when they're having difficulties, they don't get bogged down in their own miseries, because they're able to put those miseries aside to be able to help someone else. And they also they share stories of hope for people who are having difficulty, just like we talked about just a little bit ago. These people are resilient because they see hope where other people see hopelessness. And that is a key feature of people who have resilience. The meaning and purpose is really important. The seventh skill is perspective, right? So the story says gray skies are going to clear up, put on a happy face. It's actually physically helpful to you to do that. So if you are smiling, especially if you are smiling at what's called a Duchenne smile, which is an authentic, happy smile, you actually have neurotransmitters that make you feel happier. You can fake this up. If you're feeling down and you just let your whole face hang down low, you will feel like you're losing, low energy. But if you smile, you will feel better. Perspective is about in the moment. You can decide to be happier. You can focus on that. But overall, you want to take the long view. Yes, things are really challenging right now. Some things are really just plain awful. And eventually things will be better. Because in the overall scheme of life, there are bad things that have happened in the past. Some people are not students of history, but this is a good time to go back and look and see when things have happened in the past, and how we can use what we've learned before to help us to take perspectives, because things can be better in the future. The eighth skill is to tell future stories. So remember that if you are engaging in meaning and purpose, you are talking about hopefulness, so that other people can see that there might be a way forward when otherwise they might not see one. A future story is a way of thinking about what it's going to be like when the fog lifts. What is it going to be like when it's warmer? What is it going to be like when the rain stops? What is it going to be like when you can travel to that distant land? What is that going to be like? Because what you can do is you can make a post-pandemic bucket list. What are you going to do when it's over? What's it going to be like? How will you celebrate? Who are you going to celebrate with? What's going to be in those buckets? Those are pretty neat colored buckets. What would you want to put in there? Where would you go? What would you eat? The other night, one of my special people the other day gave me sushi in a little bag on my front step, and it totally made my day. It made me feel like I was living the post-pandemic life. That was one of the things on my bucket list, was to eat sushi, and I got it now. Just think about the things that you would want to have and write them down, because when eventually things start to lift and things get better, you will already be living the things in your life that you really want. Make these lists with your kids. How do they want to celebrate? I bet they have lots of good ideas. The ninth skill is self-care. So what if you practice mindful living? So mindfulness meditation is different from mindful living. Being mindful means noticing in the moment, taking what's called the mindful pause, and noticing in the moment, here, she's getting wet, and you know what? She's joyful. Because in the moment, she's enjoying exactly everything about what it means to stand in a rain shower. What are you doing in your life that you can be more mindful about? Maybe it's the, mindfully eating. It could be mindfully playing a game with your kids, but being present. So not having your phone, turn off the ringer, going outside no matter what the weather, walking barefoot in the grass, things that help you be more aware of every moment in your life. Other kinds of self-care that are important to remember, especially when our schedules are off, are to have quality sleep. Try to go to sleep at the same time every night. to keep up with your exercise or to start exercise. The number of people who run past my house every day now is amazing. I don't see very many cars. The cars that go up and down the street have to wait for the runners and the people pushing baby carriages and people who are on their bikes, because more and more people seem to be getting exercise, which is great. And also, in a time when you don't know what you're going to find at the grocery store, it's important to stick with your healthy diet. And also, you can have your kids help make menus and do cooking, because cooking is loaded with math and chemistry and biology. Great STEM things you can do with cooking. And the 10th one is to savor your growth. So without stormy weather, the plants don't grow. It's worth considering how important it is that without difficult situations and difficult life experiences, we don't grow to be resilient. So being resilient is made up of many different things. This webinar was about 10 different skills that resilience is made up of that you can learn. It is being recorded so that you can go back and look at these at your leisure, not in such a big hurry, because we only had 30 minutes to go from beginning to end. I hope that you have been keeping track of questions that you have, and I look forward to answering them for you. If you would like to know more about what I do, here is information about my website, learnandflourish.com. If you sign up for free downloads and ebooks, it also will put you on my mailing list. So you would have occasional, not very many, but occasional emails that come out, newsletters. If there are updates to other books, you can also, I have pages of 6 different books that you can buy there. There's a Facebook page for Learn and Flourish. I also have a private Facebook group, Positive Edge Parent, and my Instagram is Sherri W. Fisher. Any other questions that you have, please bring them to me now, or feel free to send them via my contact tab on my website. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sherri. I have a couple of questions here in the Q&A, and for everyone that's attending, there's a space there. If you go down to the bottom of your screen and kind of hover, the Q&A icon will come up and you can type your questions in there. The first question is, what are some ideas for kids to stay connected with their friends while they can't see them in person?
There are any number of things that can be done that involve technology. So I don't know what this person has tried already. There are many different apps. There are apps that let you do cool, fun things by changing the background or changing what a person looks like. It depends on the age of the child. Kids who are sort of 5th or 6th grade and up are really very good at using technology for the most part. On an iPad or a phone, they can use FaceTime. Again, I'm not sure exactly what the person has already tried. If the friends are close by, it is possible to do some fun things that you can do with social distancing. Students who I know have kids who they see in their neighborhood, and they ride bikes, but they ride bikes in a socially distant kind of way. So kids decorate their bikes, they yell, they sing, they take videos, and then they send the video clips to each other and they mash them up and put music to them. So they're finding ways to be social, but they're not necessarily just sitting in front of a screen to do it. So I don't know if that answered the person's question or not.
Yeah, those are some great suggestions. Thank you. The next question is, you talked about strength spotting. Do you think it's important to use the word of the strength when you're talking to a child about it so that they know exactly kind of what strength you're pointing out? Or do we maybe run into the risk of labeling kids based on their strengths?
Well, I'm going to say that I don't think that it's bad to label things, kids with good things. So I'll just say that. It's not like we're labeling them and calling them, I don't know, lazy, for example. You know, what we're doing instead is we're pointing out the good things that they do. What's interesting about the VIA strengths test is VIA stands for values in action. So what we're doing is we're pointing out behaviors and we're labeling behaviors. We're not labeling people. For example, if you if social intelligence as a strength, social intelligence is a thing you do. Strengths are things that you do. They're not things that you are. So I would say that if you are worried that you're going to label somebody as something, to take advantage of the many resources that are on the VIA Character website. You can read about how to talk about strengths when you go there. The resources there are free. They do have paid ones that give you more information about your own strengths. You can get strengths reports when you're there, but it's got great information about how to talk with kids about strengths.
Very good, thank you. It looks like that's all the questions for now. So if you want to say goodbye, I think we're at the end.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for coming, and feel free to get in touch with me. You have my contact information. I put it back up again. And my website is learnandflourish.com, and there's a contact tab if you have any other questions. Thank you so much.